Welcome everyone to EED Webinar 9, Awakening the Hero Within. It is September 19th and we have several joining us today from Romania, from Minnesota, from Hamburg, from London, from Reykjavik, from Italy, from Luxembourg. And Sophia, if you have audio, where are you coming from? Where are you calling from? Okay, and welcome, Sophia. You had just joined. Okay, so this is an EED webinar. It's meant to introduce you to some various tools that EED uses. I'll explain EED in a moment. That's Emergent Essence Dynamics. And the way we're doing this is we want to look at some common, let's say, some common traps that coaches, mediators, consultants can run into, and how EED addresses those through its tools and skills. Also, to introduce some tools and skills you may not be familiar with that EED uses. And the hero's journey is one of those tools. Some of you may have heard of the hero's journey as developed by, or originally developed by, Joseph Campbell. Is anyone already familiar with that? He wrote great. He wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And what he was doing was he was researching mythology. And he found common threads in the storytelling elements. And then it can apply to our own personal journey as if we are a hero in our own myth. All right. So and EED uses the hero's journey as a grand metaphor to represent our transformational cycles. Okay. And there are key elements in those cycles so you can understand where you are in your process of transformation, and it can give you a guide or a map on how to deal with that cycle of transformation. The transformation comes in various stages. Somebody has some background noise. Maybe if everyone just mutes, and you can feel free to jump in at any time. Okay, we've got it. It might have been some background noise with you, Georgia, or some interference. I don't know. But if you're muted, feel free to jump in at any time. So just unmute yourself to jump in with a question or comment. So I will show you and explain to you the general cycle of the hero's journey, and then we can zoom in on a few elements, and I'm hoping that I can do a demonstration of how to use one of the sections of the journey as it applies to, let's say, coaching a client where they're struggling with a very challenging situation. We mainly use the hero's journey in EED for reconciling past, present, and future so that the client or the person does not feel so much like a victim of their world, of their life, of their circumstances. And it also has them embrace their challenges and obstacles with much more resilience, where the challenges and obstacles are no longer working against them, but they are working for them. And that can be a difficult thing to understand when you're in the middle of a crisis, okay? Welcome, Carola. Good to see you. Carola calling from Munich. Awesome, okay. Let me just hear from you, not all of you, but from some of you. A couple of questions just to get things started so I know where you're at and what you want to learn here, because there's so much I could present here. What intrigues you about the hero's journey? What is your own relationship to your fears and obstacles? And what would change for you? What would change for you if you knew that the universe was working for you rather than against you? So those are three questions to put out there. You don't have to answer them all, but it's just 3 ways of looking at hero's journey. Love to hear from any and all of you. We don't have to hear from everyone if you don't want to respond, but who has some responses to that question, those questions? And welcome, Alina.
Hello,
Good,
everyone.
good to see you. Yeah.
I can jump in. To me, what this presentation is about, it's about trust and self-trust.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if I have the feeling in the situation that even if not everything is going right, that the universe is working for me, then it gives me more trust that things are going to work out all right. Okay. And it also has an impact on my self-trust. So I feel more that I can connect to my inner competencies and my inner resources because of that trust that I gained.
So you have more access to your own resilience, creativity, resources, wisdom, etc. Okay, so it can open you up rather than shut you down, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who else? Anyone else?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I think about the universe working for me, it's got something to do with my power, and that like I sort of, if I have that knowledge, then I don't have an excuse in a way to play small and to play small essentially, because like if you believe that it's working for you, then you have all the tools, you have your own access to your own power to work with the universe.
Okay.
And then I don't actually know anything about the hero's journey, so I'm really, really curious about it. So yeah.
Great. Yes. What I want to say is on that is also, if we think of we are in relationship with the universe, there's a give and a receive between us. So you're not alone, and the universe is not alone, because some people treat the universe as if it's supposed to provide for them and they're not giving anything back. Or they give everything and they're not willing to receive from the world or the universe. It can go that way as well. So this hero's journey also helps you realize there's a two-way street between you and the universe that can enhance your personal power. And then you can start endowing the universe as also powerful with you. So it becomes co-creative. Welcome, Christine. Anyone else? The questions were, it's just a brief introduction. What intrigues you about the hero's journey? What's your own relationship right now to fears and obstacles? And what would change if you knew that the universe was working for you rather than against you?
Yeah, this is Sarah. I can go.
Yeah.
I've been playing I'm really curious about the hero's journey. I think it'll be fun because I love having a framework that helps me kind of hold on to the larger picture.
Yes.
And I've been playing with the concept of really how much do I trust the universe to be with me? And what does that look like, and how do I understand that, and then watching myself when I actually do believe it, and then how quickly I go to, oh no, it's not true, and that back and forth. So I think I'm really curious to hear how you guys work with it and all of that.
What makes you believe it, and what makes you not believe it?
I think when I can get, I think it's that I want to believe it. And for me, there's a faith component of like, all of this is energetic and there's so much more beyond what we understand about who we are and how we understand ourselves as individuals. And, in the US, there's such a thing about being independent and our own, like we're responsible for all this stuff. And I really struggle with that idea. And I love the idea of co-creative and that we're all, moving towards love or something like that. And so it's one of those, like, I really want it to be true. And then, and when I am in a place where I am fully grounded and I'm feeling energy coming through me and connecting with other people, then it's like, oh, absolutely, I believe it right now. But then when I get scared, or I get, you know, something from my past does come up, and the last few months I've been in this, like, you know, my scared 18-year-old is suddenly present because I've got twins who are going out in the world, and all of a sudden I'm fully in that 18, like, I can't trust anything. None of this is trustworthy. And you know, you get scared, and I watch how far I go from that and how quickly I withdraw, and then wanting to be able to come back in again, you know, so.
Oh, this is great. Yeah. You bring up lots of points that we're going to look through here, especially like what happens when you are in this flow of energy, meaning when you are connected to your own source, resilience, then you're naturally generous, you radiate that flow, and you're receptive to receive something back. So it does feel cooperative and co-creative. Fear definitely can shut you down. And one thing we work on here is how to embrace the fears. We don't eliminate the fear, but we change the relationship to fear, where fear can then become a catalyst and a teacher. Same with obstacles. Mm-hmm. And the hero's journey is one way of helping to convert that perception. Also, one big one is, how do you deal with the past? What happens? You know, like a lot of people, they're saying, I've been through 20 years of personal development and therapy, and now I'm back to right when I was in high school. All these old behaviors come up. So how do you reconcile your old self with your new self? That's very relevant for the coaching profession and personal development. So this looks at all of that in particular. Mm-hmm. Also, this idea of, as you bring up, personal responsibility and being the creator of your own reality. And so the main question that comes up is, well, I'm being currently traumatized, or I'm going through a lot of negative situations. I don't want this, so how can you say that I created this?
Right.
So right, and as you say, things are working on a higher energetic level. So how do we reconcile that? So that also we're going to open up in the discussion. If I am the creator, why would I create shit?
Right. Where did this shit come from, and who's responsible? Not me.
Exactly.
Oh, wait, exactly. I did. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for those of you that attended our last webinar, we were talking somewhat about the 8 circuits of consciousness, right? And the hero's journey is what deals with the 7th circuit. So the 7th circuit of consciousness has to do with universal mind, cosmic interconnections, where we are participating in this grand cosmic web. Okay, where it's not just one mind, but an interconnected collective, all right? So this includes synchronicities, this includes direct relationship between self and the world, and everything is a participant in what's happening, okay? It's also almost like getting a grand meta view of how everything connects together, all right? This is the realm we're playing with here in the hero's journey. So we have several new people on. Some have been on before, so I'll just explain briefly what emergent essence dynamics is and how that relates back to your own professions. I'm assuming that many of you are coaches. I know many of you are coaches, and then some of you are not. You might be managers, you may be consultants, facilitators, leaders, even healers. EED applies to it all because it acts more as like a sub-model, a model that fits underneath your professional models. If you're a coach, you're going to have coaching methods and models. If you're a mediator, you'll have coaching methods and models. EED fits underneath because it concerns itself with the actual human dynamics, how we're in relationship to ourselves, others, the world, and with you as the professional, whether you be coach, consultant, facilitator, or leader. And there's a 5th relationship, which is our relationship to time, meaning past, present, future. Everything has a dynamic. Everything is based upon action, reaction, cause, and effect. So what EED is looking at, it's not about what somebody is saying, it's more about what they're doing, how they're behaving, and the energy they're experiencing within themselves. That will determine how they act and react in situations or with people. And what we're primarily dealing with is their level of resistance and their level of resilience. EED looks at resistance and resilience in the same way. It's the same energy, except resistance can disconnect us from a creative flow, and resilience puts us in that creative flow state. And the primary thing we're doing here is building the resilience so the person has more access to their resources and creativity and inner wisdom, so they have increased autonomy, meaning they govern themselves rather than waiting to be told what to do, rather than feeling victimized by everything outside of themselves. This allows them to be less reactive and more proactive. So we're also then dealing with inner belief systems that are driving these behaviors. And so one thing we're looking at, and this is what the hero's journey starts to reveal, is in those dynamics of various relationships, what are the recurring patterns? There are certain fundamental patterns that are happening over and over and over again. It doesn't matter what relationship the person's in. It's like they're playing out the same dramas or games over and over again on different levels, from the small scale to the large scale. We call this fractal dynamics, all right? Fractals meaning small repeating patterns that happen everywhere, and they're all connected, okay? And so ultimately then, when we're looking at actions and behaviors, when we're looking at these dynamics in relationship, meaning the fractals, and when we're working with resilience and building that, we then can get the person in a more creative mindset where they are the master of themselves and their world, and they can start reprogramming themselves so they are a participant and a co-creator in their reality, where they can affect and influence their reality and other people. It's not about manipulating, but it's about acting and responding in a co-creative fashion, all right? So, as far as hero's journey goes, and EED in general, we do not focus on transformation. Coaching models, leadership models, they're hardwired to say transformation, transformation, big impact, be bigger, play a bigger game, all of this stuff. EED is saying, no, we don't concern ourselves with that, because transformation is already happening and it's naturally happening. Therefore, I don't need to try and force it to happen. Rather, if I get the person more connected to their resilience and their creative mindset, they'll have more capacity first to accept what's happening and then play with what's happening from a higher wisdom or understanding. Many times we rush to change things without understanding what's around us. We are faced with a situation, we say that doesn't feel good, it doesn't look good, I need to eliminate it. Yet, the way we look at it as that is presenting an opportunity or a lesson to learn, which ultimately will bring out more strength, resilience, and creativity from the person. So before we change or transform, we look to accept what's happening first. The ability to accept automatically kicks into gear more resilience from the person. It takes more humility, adaptability, flexibility, and strength to be able to accept what's happening rather than fight or resist it. Are you guys following me here? Okay. So, the hero's journey is looking at what's our relationship to those obstacles, what is our purpose, and what's our vision or our quest. And they all work together. And you can discover all of that. The vision or the quest automatically sets us up to meet certain obstacles. And then if we pass those tests, we earn the reward. And the reward is new strengths, new wisdom, expanded capacity. Okay. So, how are you guys doing with this information? And any comments or questions on it so far before I move on? Yeah.
Troy, this is Cesar.
Yeah.
Just expectation from my side about the hero stuff. I'm not sure I'm following all this thing, but I'm pretty interested about the transformation of the hero around the journey. I mean, you know, we see heroes all over the place. I get annoyed by my hero.
Okay.
First of all, especially when I'm coaching.
Okay.
I have clients that play a lot with the hero, and I'm trying to figure it out, the dynamics between their hero and my hero. I know it's not about me, but I cannot take it away. I have to deal with it, especially inside of coaching, and especially into the evolutionist point of view, because you know the environment is changing us and is changing also our heroes. You know, they are more resilient and more thoughtful, and you know, it tends to be like a fashion from my client's point of view. So I'm trying to shut this channel down, because I don't know if I'm on the same page with you guys, but I don't want to be the outlier in this discussion.
I'll tell you where this is taking me, Cesar.
Yeah, please.
I'm just going to screen share here because I can get on these slides here. You can all see the slide here? Okay, good. I think what you're pointing to is, how do we approach the hero from an ego point of view, meaning what I'll call a closed bubble. I'm just concerned with myself, okay? And then from a universal point of view, meaning the hero represents all of humanity. It's more archetypal, and it makes a contribution to the whole universe. It's not about the ego hero, which is only concerned about themselves and their own survival, okay? This also pulls back to the circuits when we were talking in the last webinar. Circuit 4, meaning our role in society and culture, right? Our function in the world, that's more ego-based. It's more about, I have a function in society in order to survive, in order to eat and take care of my needs and take care of my family. If we move that up to circuit 7, this is, I'm making contributions that benefit beyond myself. It benefits the universe, all of humanity. I'll give you an example. The hero's journey is all about a story, okay? Now, I could make a movie about my ego-based hero, okay? And it could be all about, you know, the stuff I write in my diary, right? Oh, here's what happened today. Oh, isn't this terrible? I'm affected, but do you care about hearing about all my dramas? Does it apply back to you, or is it just self-indulgent, okay? That's an example of circuit 4. It's ego-based hero. If I extend that out to something universal, I need to rewrite the story in a way that it inspires you, where you can plant yourself in my shoes as if you're going through the same thing. It's going to teach you personal lessons. It's not about me working out my own stuff, but I use myself as an example for inspiring you and teaching you something. The great stories, myths, are universal. Everyone can relate to it, okay? It's a human drama, not a personal drama. Are you guys understanding that distinction here? Okay. Where we're going is that universal drama. So the client is going to come into a coaching session saying, I'm having this problem, I'm having that problem. When we use the hero's journey, we're getting them to step outside themselves and look at it as if it's a movie, and what can they learn from it? What can it actually teach others? So this gets their ego out of the way, which also starts neutralizing their suffering. And then they can take on more of a greater calling, which will bring out their higher self, which then, Georgia, has them play a bigger game in a way, because they're not playing it for themselves, but there's a higher contribution involved. There's more at stake then. It doesn't mean they do bigger things. It just has greater meaning. How are you guys following that so far? Yeah? Okay. All right, let me, where am I here? I've got the screen share. Here we go. Okay. So this is what the whole cycle of the hero's journey looks like. Okay. You guys can see this? Okay. Now, there's 4 main stages. We start from the original self. Okay. And this is like the beginning of the movie. We establish the character. Who is this person? What are some of their strengths? What are some of their flaws, right? It's like Dorothy living in Kansas, right, with Toto. Okay, and we establish the characters. We get a baseline of who they are, all right? But then there comes a point of departure. This is where the hero is getting ready to enter the great unknown, okay? This is where, in a way, something happens, or they get a calling, or they get an idea or an inspiration, meaning I need to venture out into the world. I need to leave home, okay? By the way, pop in if you have any questions along the way, okay? Now, this could be like the call to a quest could be, I have an idea. I want to start a business. I want to move like to a new location, or I need to look for a new job. Anything we have in our life that says, I'm called to something new and beyond what I know. Are you guys following me here? Okay. Now, this section, the transforming self, this is what most coaching programs focus on. All right. This is, I have a quest, a sense of purpose, okay, and I'm meeting challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge. And what coaching is focusing on is, who are you becoming? This is the goal. What's your new self? Okay. And so many coaching sessions are focused here around, what are the challenges and obstacles you're currently facing? What do you want? What's your sense of purpose? Who do you want to become? Are you guys following that? I'd say that's probably 85, 90, or 95% of your work as a coach. And even as a leader or a facilitator, because people are always wanting to grow and evolve, okay? And consultants as well. This is what they're looking at, okay? I need consultation because I need to implement some kind of a new thing in my business. Please tell me how to do it, blah, 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 okay? And I will focus, I'll zoom in more on what this means, okay? The transforming self. But this consists of mostly tests, trials, tribulations, challenges, and what's most important are lessons that we're learning, okay? Your client is going to come in and say, I'm meeting all these obstacles, but they're refusing to pay attention to what the lesson is. What they want to do is eliminate the obstacles, okay? How can I overcome it? But if you want to overcome an obstacle, it's going to take effort and humility. They're not really interested in that. They'd love those obstacles to disappear. Are you guys following? Anybody in disagreement with that? Or anyone in agreement? Okay. No comments? Yeah, go ahead, Philippe.
I have a client who actually loves challenges even more than the rewards. So he's always putting himself in situations where he gets challenged, but yeah, his difficulty is to harvest the rewards and the lessons.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Typical of an overachiever, let's say.
Exactly.
Or typical of a rebel. Okay, the one that thrives off of fighting the system, got to fight, fight, fight. Social justice warrior, whatever, right? It's all about the challenges and got to beat the system, beat them, beat them. So this also is a typical problem that shows up in the coaching is we don't focus enough on the other side. This means harvesting the rewards. All right. This means integrating the new strength or the power, recognizing the gifts that we earn or are given after the big battle. Okay. I'll give you an example, which is quite typical of artists, whether it's an actor, a writer, or a musician. Okay. They're working for, okay, call to quest. I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to put up a play, or I'm going to write a new song and perform it. So they're doing all this work to get the book written, or to rehearse, or to compose, and then they do the big performance. Okay, and then what do they do immediately? They go back here. What's the next thing? And what they don't do is they don't enjoy the recognition. Okay, they don't enjoy the applause. They don't take a few days or a week or a month to recharge and just bask in the glory of their accomplishment. They're immediately on the next thing. All right. Another metaphor for that regarding this embodies the creative cycle. If you think of it like seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. In the spring, we get an idea. In the summer, we work towards that idea. We're constructing it, we're building it, okay? And there's challenges along the way. And then the fall is the big moment where we release the product. The product is made. Or if we're growing a garden, all the fruits are on the trees, okay? Now, some people, overachievers, artists, etc., they may rip down those fruits and give it all away and not even taste one of the fruits from the garden. Others might say, okay, there's my garden, and they set the whole thing on fire. They'll burn the crop. They won't even give it away. They'll burn the crop. That could be like self-sabotage right before curtain goes up. Okay, it could be they just go through the performance, they're not even enjoying it, and curtain closes because it's the least satisfying moment for them. It was the buildup that was more satisfying, and now they just want to get rid of the product. And then what they do is they go plant another garden immediately. They never gave the soil time to rest. So guess what happens? They plant the next garden and it produces smaller fruit. It takes more effort. And the next time, even smaller fruit until that soil is dead. And what do they experience? Burnout. How is this working for you guys? Making sense? Okay. So this phase here about enjoying the new self, being in bliss. This is like after all the hard work, I'm in heaven. Okay, this is paradise. This moment here, the crux moment, it's like a death and a rebirth. It's like going to hell and back. That's our moment of breakdown, okay? It's the biggest challenge we've got. We're about to give up. This is when the hero has 10 seconds to save the world, and they trip and fall and lose the weapon that's going to destroy the asteroid. It falls into a crack deep into the earth, and now what do? The asteroid's coming, and they're about to give up. Do you guys see that? Can you imagine that scene from the movie, right? It's like, oh my God, what do? You've got 10 seconds left before the world ends. But somehow they remember something, they pull something out, and in the last moment, they pull out that one laser weapon that they didn't realize they had, and they shoot the asteroid, and the world is saved, okay? Usually the movie ends there. But what happens to the hero after? We never get to see the great reward too much. Very, very few stories or movies show us that, okay? Am I speaking too fast for you guys? No. And we tend to do this in life. We don't enjoy our great reward. We don't enjoy a time in paradise. Okay. That's part of integration. Integrating the new self, the new talents, the new abilities, the new forms of bliss and enjoyment. This is when, like, you're enjoying a very successful period in your life. Things are flowing, things are easy, okay? Now, this is key, and this does not get discussed much. When we're out here as the new self, and even the transforming self, we're in what's called the outer world. This is the place furthest from home, okay? This is when Dorothy, she left Kansas, and she's going through all those adventures in the world of Oz, and then she gets to the wizard's palace, right? And then she's facing the wizard, okay? She's the furthest from home, okay? Her crux moment is when they're facing the wizard. He's this big projection, mean wizard saying, "Get out of my palace." And then Toto, the dog, pulls the curtain back, and we realize it's this little old man behind the controls, and he's nothing to really fear, okay? That's like a rebirth. And then they befriend the wizard, and he gives the lion his courage, the Tin Man his heart, and the Scarecrow gets his brain. And then Dorothy's happy for everyone, but she's like, what about me, right? And she feels like, okay, my adventure here is done. She gets the call to go home. I have a choice. I could stay and live in Oz forever, or I could go back to Kansas where I belong, okay? The trouble here is that when we're enjoying our great reward, we could begin to forget our original self. When we're in the middle of personal development, sometimes we want to forget that original self. We want to put it aside and say, I'll never be that person again. You guys following me here? I was a bad person. I was a small person, whatever you judge upon yourself. But when you do that, you are cutting yourself in half, and you're only enjoying this portion of yourself, and this portion you are denying. Do you guys understand this? So you are not a whole person. So an example of this could be, sometimes this call to come home could be, you're over here, suddenly you got to go to your high school reunion. Or there's a death in the family and you got to go home and meet all the old relatives again. Or you've been a foreign exchange student for the last several years and now you got to move back to your home country. Many examples of this, for example, like those are typical real life examples. Or you've been through your 20 years of therapy and then suddenly old behaviors are getting triggered up and you're thinking, I thought I dealt with this, right? Why is it coming again? So it's a call for reintegration, bridging this gap. And this, I say, does not get dealt with. It rarely gets dealt with. Usually what happens is when those old triggers come up, we look at it like it's another one of these obstacles that we have to defeat. We're on the wrong place of the map. Are you guys following this, what I'm saying? Okay. What the opportunity is, when we can reconcile our new self with our original self, is we can have more mastery over ourself and our world. We are a far more expanded self, okay? We can take the best of what we were and the best of what we are now, as well as what we thought was weak may no longer be weak. It may actually be a hidden strength that was there all along. For example, how did Dorothy get home from Oz? Anybody remember if they've seen that movie? Yeah.
I think she went back in the balloon, didn't she?
She did. No, was it the balloon? Well,
I've only seen it 400 times, so it's
the main thing was they told her, if you want to go back to Kansas, click your heels 3 times.
Yeah. Yep.
She was always wearing those ruby slippers. She always was wearing them. What this means is our original strengths, sometimes we think when we're on this side, on the right side of the diagram, we might think it's our greatest weakness. We also might be criticized for those strengths, right? So in a way, it's fractal. The solution to our problem is always there. We just don't see it. And if we have the humility to reconcile ourselves with who we are, if we spend so much time saying, I want to be somebody different, and we renounce or deny who we actually are, we may be missing the key, the greatest key to our own transformation, which is actually more integration into wholeness rather than becoming something different. This is why EED is stressing acceptance over transformation, because we might throw the baby out with the bathwater. However, Dorothy had to go through that whole adventure to realize the power of those slippers. Do you understand? So it wasn't a waste of time. But what's important here is that we reincorporate our original self with the new self, or it's the other way around. Bring in those new strengths into the old, re-embrace the old strengths. And we won't see original weaknesses as weaknesses anymore. There's an atonement that happens. This is also reconciliation, where we forgive ourselves for our wrongs. Perhaps whatever happened on this side during our tests and trials, there were many failures. We made many mistakes. Maybe we felt people did us wrong and distracted us from our purpose. Here, we can have more of a meta view and say, aha, so those people criticizing me actually were pointing me in the direction I needed to go. I just refused to see it. Or whoever seemed like an enemy was actually a helper. What this does is it releases us from shame, pain, guilt, and holding grudges and anger. Are you guys following this? Here then becomes a freedom. And so we're not just returning to our original self, but we are becoming a much greater self, because the original self, the transforming self, and the new self all integrate into one. So our point of origin also is our point of return. That's a big lecture. What does this spark for you? Oh, what I wanted to say also, this little piece here. When we're spending a lot of time out here, either in our successes or in our greatest trials and tribulations, home can feel like a foreign country. And this foreign land can feel like home. So it gets flipped around. Like, for example, if you've moved to a different country and it's, you know, you've been there for 10 years, that foreign country is no longer foreign, it feels home. And when you go back to your original country, it can feel like a foreign country again, because you've forgotten the customs, or you come back to those old customs and they bother you. So what was once unknown becomes known. And what was once known feels foreign to you. That was the other point I wanted to make. That's why sometimes it's hard to come home, because there's a letting go process once again. There's a shedding of yourself and a reintegration of old elements. Okay, I wanted to hear from you. Just comments and questions.
Well,
and inspirations. Go ahead, Amiel. Yes.
My whole thing is, I also see that I don't really accept rewards and don't at all go back. Like I lose myself oftentimes. And for me, it would be really interesting to find more methods and tactics to like accept everything and trust into what's coming at me, and that it's not an enemy, an obstacle, and something bad.
Okay, great. I'm going to note that because we do have a technique exactly for that. I'll come back to it. I'm just noting to mention it. Anyone else?
Troy, it was like a breakthrough moment right now as you spoke, because
Okay.
I feel a huge synchronicity, because these days from last webinar I just buried my father and I had to go back to the birthplace, and it was hard because this reintegration, and it was like reliving a lot of things, but from a different perspective, from a different thing. It was like I remembered some things that some years ago I didn't understood them, but now I came back with different eyes, with different. But you know what I felt? It was like it was something the same. You know, something still remains the same. You know, I cannot explain it, but there is a core essence.
That's
that
right.
It's the same. Sorry for
this
yes.
relates back to our last call, which dealt with essential purpose. What's the same? That essential purpose, that core strength, okay, with that core contribution. It's through these tests and challenges and lessons, that's the lesson of the essential purpose, that we can also discover a new strength which reinforces the original strength. And that then brings us full circle. When we marry the new strength with the original strength, it allows us to make the contribution even greater. It will make the challenges even greater, which reinforce the new strength even more, which then reinforces the original strength. So the essential purpose also matches this hero's journey. So there is an element of you that is always essential. It's not changing. It's what's sustaining you and carrying you through. Everything around you can change, and you can reveal different aspects and facets of yourself, but it is all connected to that essential source being. Okay? Do you want to respond to that, Cesar? You're muted. Yeah.
Yes, I'm muted, but yes, it's that what I felt. You know, it was like I couldn't explain it, but as you spoke, I just lived this theory that is confusing me. That's why I want to come to your workshop.
Okay, great, yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? What does this provoke or inspire, or?
Can I share something?
Yeah, please.
I've really resonated with it because in just my own journey, because I've spent, 2 or 3 years in kind of healing, self-development work on myself. And it really feels like I'm just coming back to who I originally was. And you were just saying that. I really feel like I'm just healing the layers back to who I actually am. It's not like I'm finding a new person in there. I'm just coming back to me. And I'm like remembering all these ways of being that I haven't really been in touch with since I was like 5, 10, 12 years old, and then they're like coming back and they're like integrating, and I'm like, oh, I can be this way and with all this new stuff. So really, really resonated with that. And then I've spent like a year and a half in like an intense, doing like a new intense practice, living in a community, on a coaching program. So a lot of like exploration and integration. And now I've come back home to my family's home. And it's like, I'm in this real like down, like digestion kind of period. And I'm really seeing the like, I'm just allowing it all to like settle now. And this like coming home thing just really is exactly what I've done.
You can equate that to almost like a winter period, right? You've had all this activity and now it's like coming home for Christmas, literally.
Yeah.
Right? And allow everything to settle, you know, to get into that hibernation, absorption, let yourself recharge, not to rush into new ideas, not to rush into resisting being home, right? And fighting it and saying, I feel like such a failure. Here I am back home. Because that's where we will go.
Yeah.
Right? Because what we think is we're moving from here backwards, right? I'm at home. We don't realize that actually we're moving this way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's really comforting to see, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that comfort bring you? What does it open up in you then?
It brings a trust, just trusting in and an acceptance of this process of exactly where I'm at is like exactly where I need to be. And that like it is going to shift.
Okay.
And just seeing the like cyclical nature of it is really, it brings me a lot of trust. Yeah. In the process. Excellent.
Awesome. Is there anyone else that has comments, questions here?
Yeah, I have a comment. What can sometimes add some confusion is that, okay, in movies, usually you see characters with one quest, but in life, you very often have multiple quests at the same time. So you can find yourself at the same time in departure on one quest and then an exploration on 2 or 3 other quests.
Yeah.
Exploration, another quest, etc. And it's sometimes difficult if you don't take the time to really, in a way, analyze where you are in every quest. You can feel lost and don't know really where you are or what's coming next.
Okay, this is great. You're bringing up now the fractal nature of this. Okay, so you could look at this and say this is one lifetime, right? I'll do it better. Okay, one grand lifetime. Okay, but also this could be every single day. Okay, there are grand quests and mini quests. Okay, so this is about our relationship to the world. There is a send and a receive. So every day you wake up, you have to venture out into the world, whether that's to go to work or just go to the store to get some groceries, or to work on your project or to make your contribution, right? To send your message out there. You're going out into the world, okay? And that's going to take energy. You're spending energy because you're also hitting obstacles. You've got to be creative, right? To get your stuff done. You've got to come up with creative solutions. And then at a certain point, you're going to feel like you're running out of energy. And you have to come back home to recharge. Literally, come home to go to sleep. Do you understand? And this becomes a daily cycle where we venture out into the world. That means we're taking risks, we're getting stressed, we're expending energy. And then at a certain point, we feel called back home to recharge, enjoy the rewards, okay, and rest. It's to rest, recharge, and be nourished, okay? This is a daily cycle. So when you have clients who are doing their project, they say, I have a goal or a vision. Okay, their daily action is going to follow this cycle. Now you've got some overachievers that are addicted to staying out here, and they will not go home. And then they wonder, why am I experiencing burnout? Okay. You have others that end up planning, envisioning, and having all kinds of coaching sessions about doing the action, but they never leave home. Right? And they're like, oh, I'm so scared to venture out here, right? So there's an imbalance either way. What we're looking for is to balance both directions, so there is a healthy sending and receiving, or leaving and returning. This is, again, EED works in cycles of polarities. Send, receive, give, receive, leave, return. You guys understand those opposites, okay? So
I have a question right there. Just like, what if there is no call to quest? Or what if you don't hear the call to home? Like, how do you know when you should go further?
The key there is the connection to self, the connection to source. All right, what we call that core resilience. We discussed this in previous webinars, and this gets discussed at length in Module 1. Is the first place we go is, what's the personal resilience of the client, okay? And we anchor that and we activate it. So when you are experiencing resilient energy, what I mean by resilience, it's that will to live, that spark of life and vitality. It's that sense of permanence and timelessness. It's the sense of, I feel infinitely creative and invincible, limitless, all right? It's generally connected to an essential quality. The four main qualities would be peace, love, unity, or limitlessness, like limitless creativity. It's quite easy to actually tap into that. To sustain it, we have ways to anchor and sustain it. But what we found is, once we get that energy flowing like a vertical line, vertical column, up and down, where the whole body is energized from head to toe, and then we further connect that to the earth and the sky, where then the client says, oh my God, I feel like a tree, like I've got branches reaching out to infinity, and I've got roots going deep into the earth, and I'm the trunk in between. This is creating their universal connection. At that point, all this energy is flowing through them. The first natural thing they say is, I want to share this energy. They want to naturally give that energy out. And this is what we call the horizontal loop. This is their sense of contribution. So if I'm a being full of love, right? Perhaps it could be, I want to awaken that love in others. That's their contribution. It's like a sense of essential purpose. I am love who awakens love in others, as an example. So, to answer your question, Amiel, come back to that, what we call vertical loop. Come back to activating that resilience, build the charge up strongly, and inspirations come in for creative ideas or for a willingness to contribute something. And then from there, when they want to act upon that contribution, we're back to this world loop where they've got to go out to the outer world and then come back home and recharge. So we have the vertical, the horizontal, where they're in relationship to things. Then that whole unit starts to move out into the world, between home and world, okay? I have a diagram for that, but not a slide of it here. What does that awaken in you guys? That explanation?
Actually, I just wanted to add something to what you just said, Troy. Sorry that you don't see me, but it's
okay.
flicking, so I'm not going to make you dizzy.
Yeah.
So I'm the voice of the off. With my clients, and also with myself, what I've found out is in our culture, to appreciate what you do or what you say or what you are is not written in capital letters. So they have to go back to getting really to learn it, how to appreciate also the little things in life. And it's like a muscle that you have to train.
Yes.
And it's very difficult in the beginning, of course, to really see the little things in daily life. So what you said, you have to do it every day. This is exactly it. And over not that much time, maybe 2 months or so, you really can see, or I can observe a change in their attitude. So what they do is they really start looking into it and making exactly this exploration, integration balance into what is new in themselves. So they don't reach, or maybe they have not reached the return to the original self, because they're still trying and learning and training that muscle of appreciating what they can harvest. That's what I observe in my culture. I don't know how it is with the others, but here it is quite a big issue.
The harvest or the integration or all of that?
It's all of that. It's really to celebrate what you have achieved, even if it's a very, very small thing or a little success. It's not the big thing. It's just the little ones. But then by learning how to appreciate that, they also learn to appreciate the bigger things.
Yes.
And to celebrate it and to really fill themselves with what is coming back to them by harvesting.
Okay.
And that's a difficult step, more than I thought that could be so difficult, but it is. And it doesn't sound, here it sounds maybe easy, but it's not.
I'll make a comment, a bold comment on that, Carola. You're hitting something very important, which is the role of mind control in our society. And part of this mind control is we're taught that to celebrate ourselves or to harvest our rewards is arrogant and wrong. And that makes us either burn out or we give everything away and become slaves.
Yeah.
Do you guys understand what I mean by that?
Yes.
Yeah. So when we're not taking things back into our well-being and reintegrating it, if we keep refusing what we receive, one, we'll never reap the rewards of what we create, or in fact, we'll never create because we'll keep ignoring our creations, or we keep giving our power away. And somehow we think, well, that's what makes a good person. I'm humble. No, you're stupid. Frankly. But we've been conditioned to think that way. So part of what you're doing, Carola, is you are breaking the conditioning of a person. And the first place they're going to go is into guilt and shame and I don't deserve it and unworthiness. And you have to fight all of that resistance. Does that make sense to you, Carola?
Absolutely. It's very big resistance here.
Yeah. Again, that is why resilience is primary. When they are grounded in resilience, when they're in an essential quality of peace, love, unity, or limitlessness, that conditioning dissolves. And they just feel this unconditional generosity. They feel this omnipresence, and they can receive just as much as they give. This I have seen consistently 100% when I get people in that direct experience of resilience. Would you agree or disagree, Carola? Because Carola has taken all the modules. She's an alumni. But when you've worked with resilience, what have you discovered?
Well, from my own experience, I definitely felt so strong and unlimited strength. And this was a very interesting and very, very powerful experience. I would definitely wanted to share with also my coachees and the teams I work with, to make them being creative and unlimitlessness. Oh my God, my wording is so bad today.
That's good. You're making total sense.
So it's really that strength that I felt, that energy actually that I felt to really achieve everything that I wanted to achieve. So this is a beautiful experience, and this is what the others definitely need to experience as well, because then they do not end up in burnout.
Yes. Yes. And this is so important. If there's one skill you can learn, and you don't have to take EED courses to learn this, it's whenever you're moving somebody into action or vision, ask them what's the reward that they will reap, and meaning how does that action feed back to their well-being? How does that action or vision nourish them so that you're facilitating the return of energy back to them? Because in order to do an action, in order to build a vision, they're giving out energy. But when you say, and what does that give back to you? Or how does that feed you? Or literally, how does that feed your well-being? That means they're taking it back. And then they can have this perpetual motion. Otherwise, they're going to exhaust themselves or stress themselves or put pressure on themselves to act. And this is another reason why they won't leave home, because they say it's too hard, it's too exhausting, right? Anyone that's experienced burnout, after they've had the period of burnout, it's very difficult at first to get back into action, because any little challenge will make them sick to their stomach because they're reminded of that period of depletion. And it's because they never learned how to cycle the energy back into themselves. Is this making sense to you? Okay. So in EED, we work with these energy loops. This is the vertical loop. This is resilience within the self. Then they can start giving that resilience to others, which activates their own resilience, and then they get something back. So there's this free flow of energy between people. So this is you in relationship to others. Now you're always in relationship to things. Then you take that larger bubble of you in relationship and you leave home and you go out into the world and you're in relationship with things out in the world. And that's going to feed you. Then you come back home and recharge. Everything you've collected out in the world, you bring back home and integrate. Are you guys following the way I've drawn this diagram here?
Yep.
Okay. So that's what this diagram means. And this diagram is another way of looking at going from home to outer world and back home. Here's where we spend all our energy with the challenges and obstacles and lessons. And then here is where we reap the rewards and bring it back to our well-being. And we reintegrate all our experiences back into ourselves. Those experiences give us more strength, knowledge, and wisdom. Then we can go out again with more resilience, creativity, and knowledge. Collect bigger experiences, collect bigger rewards. It's a perpetual cycle. Is that working for you guys?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have a question, Troy.
Yeah.
In some quests, well, I don't know if you call it for the quest if it's not complete, but you can imagine a case where you start the quest and then you get the challenges and there is no real reward. I mean, there is a lesson, but there is no concrete reward. So maybe much later you will get reward, but when you do the quest and you get the challenges, you just get out alive and get lessons. There is no concrete reward that you can replenish yourself with. So what I wonder is, can you then, is then the cycle stopped somewhere before the end of the cycle, or is there a way to go back to a full circle?
Let me put it to you another way, which might not sound fair.
Mm-hmm.
You're describing a refusal of the reward. What I mean is the hero is going through with an expectation of this is what my reward's going to be. They win the battle, and then they say, where's my prize? It's not what I expected. It's not what I wanted. Mm-hmm. So they're not recognizing the reward that's been presented, or they feel ripped off because it wasn't the prize. It's like, no, I was going for the teddy bear. Why are you giving me the fridge magnet? Right? So, so part of what the coaching is, I'll show you another diagram that highlights this area. It's the hero can determine or decide their reward as well. Meaning, I know what I'm doing this for, okay? And it's not like I'm doing this to win $1 million, okay? It's more of I'm doing this to gain an experience which will feed a quality in me, okay? In order for me to do this battle, it's going to demand certain strengths and qualities. My reward will be I've used those qualities plus a new quality will emerge. This is where it overlaps with essential purpose. By learning the lesson, I open a new quality in myself. I've literally experienced what you're saying. When I was a pianist, I played actually 2 competitions where they denied me the first prize, okay? In one competition, I won the competition. And then they phoned me and they said, we can't give you the actual prize, but you can use the competition on your resume. And I said, give me a cash equivalent. And they said, because I was supposed to play on the radio, for a big event, whatever. And they said, no, they denied me the prize. So from there, I had to determine, well, what was my prize? If that was a test, what did I get out of it? Because you never get nothing, okay? So I have to decide, what did I get out of it? I learned a great lesson from it, and the lesson opened other opportunities for me, okay? So you can actually program yourself to be intentional. It's not a materialistic prize, okay? That's important. It's if there's a rebirth, what am I born into? All right. Rather than what am I receiving as payment? Okay, that's the reward is not necessarily payment or compensation for your struggle. Do you guys understand what I'm saying there? Okay. Sometimes you'll hear stories of somebody that sacrificed everything and everyone benefited, and that person got nothing out of it. They died nameless and poor. Do you understand? But for them to feel reconciled with everything they've done, they had to decide what their reward was out of it. And maybe it was just complete service to liberating the world. Maybe they don't participate in it. It's like a great artist, like say Mozart wrote all this great music and died a nobody and poor and was thrown in a group grave with, anonymously, right? And then was unknown for 100 and some years until he was rediscovered and then suddenly became famous and was named a great composer, but not during his lifetime. He was semi-famous during his lifetime, but not appreciated. What drove him to still write the music, aside from trying to pay his gambling debts? Do you guys understand what I mean? I mean,
yep.
He wrote great music. He could have written crap music, but he didn't. He was aspiring higher. He had a higher contribution, a higher reason. And even though, he might be treated like shit along the way, he has his own purpose and reward in mind. Does that help you, Philippe?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looking at time here. Okay, I want to move to this next slide. This one. This is a zooming in on this section, okay? What we're looking at here is the crux moment. In every movie, there's a great battle where the hero must face their shadow or their greatest enemy. And it's at this crux moment that the hero risks losing everything. It's like, if everything could go wrong, if everything could break down, it does. This is where the hero gets their resources exhausted, okay? And then somehow, if they win the battle, meaning they're in the hero's journey, they're actually battling against themselves, okay? Their shadow side. And when they defeat that shadow and move into the light, they enter a new reality, and they're like the king of the world here, okay? All of these obstacles and challenges are preparations for this big battle. Every obstacle or test cultivates a new strength that they can then use here at the crux moment. So if you look back here, it says there's a death, a revelation, and a rebirth. Okay? So if you think of your most challenging times in life, the times when you got through a situation against all odds, or when you were most determined to make something happen, you could have failed, you could have given up, things could have gone wrong, but somehow you pulled through and you were successful. Think of these three questions. What was the death? What died in you there? Or what did you think totally collapsed in that moment? And what was the awakening? What was that moment of illumination, or where the light bulb went off and it totally shifted who you were or your reality? And then what was that rebirth? What was that new self or new reality you were born into? When a client comes to you in crisis, it's like they're in a crux moment or almost there, and they think they're going to get crushed. What they're experiencing is the death. It's what I call death's door. When we're at death's door, we basically have a choice, A or B, and that's it. We always choose A, meaning this is always my escape. This is what creates a recurring pattern. When I'm faced with this, when I'm faced to expose myself, feel very vulnerable, and, I don't know, explore my deepest feelings and secrets, I will not do that because I know I will get betrayed. I know someone will betray my secret, they'll use it against me. So if I'm faced and forced to be vulnerable, I close up and I walk away. They always make that same choice, for example. And what's going to happen is they'll go right back down here again, and they're going to recycle and recycle until they go through that death's door. If you say to them, well, what if you did expose yourself? What if you let yourself be vulnerable? What would that demand of you? Well, that would demand that I feel fragile, weak, I could be killed. It would feel like death. I could be ruined. And if you went through that and survived, what would you become? This would lead them to the awakening and the rebirth. In order for them to go through that door, they're facing something they refuse to acknowledge in themselves. But if they have the resilience to go through, meaning, okay, I can be ruined, I can lose everything, and I'm okay with that. They can go through the death's door, and they will have an awakening and realize, there's certain things I can let go of, and there's certain things I possess in myself that can bridge me over into a new reality. Are you guys following what I'm saying here? Okay. It takes resilience to go through the death's door. And when we're at this point, right here, we spend more time resisting and fighting, right here. And we lack the humility to go through. It takes resilience to have humility. This is where we abandon our identity. We abandon the old or the transforming self. It dissolves. That's why it's called a death. Does that make sense? And then we are the phoenix rising here. And the next webinar is about what do you do at this point when you've gone through the breakdown. Now, how do you enter this new reality, and what are the things you can do there, okay? This is more about what are you doing on this side. What does this provoke, inspire, or what questions come up here? When we're looking.
Troy, I get emotional because I went through the cruise
last
year.
Okay.
I lose job. I lose my beloved one. My father died, and I deal with starvation. Really, I was terrified to die because of starvation.
Okay.
And yes, I lost my identity completely.
Mm-hmm.
I have to renounce to go to the other place. It's a great lesson of my life, and I understand what is, and it's still I'm in progress in understanding what is the true humility. And this is make me feel a better human being, because when I face another human being, I'm not arrogant like I was, because unless you pass this place, you always have some point when you are more arrogant. So I am stronger, I can face everything. And also I develop what I call the spontaneous true compassion. That doesn't come from I have to be compassionate because I am better than others. I am compassionate because I was near to die.
Okay.
It's completely different.
Look, now, go ahead.
And yeah, I switch off the camera because I start to crying because it's still moving. And when I am so vulnerable, I feel very well because I'm human.
You're human. Okay. So that whole experience had you expand your experience of being human. It was a hard experience. Now, and what I'm hearing is here, this was, what would you call it? It was the death of your arrogance, or what did you let go of? What crumbled here as part of your identity?
I think not only arrogance, but the belief that I don't need connection or help, that I don't need to ask for having something, that I am better than other people.
Okay.
And also I let go the presumptions that things must go like I want that things go.
Okay,
and
so you've got pride, arrogance, and control.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if we look at this map and you go into the past, who you were years ago, even to this foundation, having that pride or that arrogance and control may have been very useful to you in earlier situations to protect yourself, to get ahead, to build your status in the world, etc. But then it comes a point, think of like a reptile, where they have to shed their skin in order to grow. In order for you to expand your humanity, the universe is saying, okay, time to let go of that pride, time to be able to ask for help. So these messages may have come in smaller situations, little tests. But you say, no, I'm going to keep my pride. I won't ask for help. And you make it through. But then the universe says, okay, she's a strong one. Let's give her an even bigger one, until they give you the big one that you can't handle anymore. And there's this awakening that says, wait a minute, have some humility. I cannot have the pride anymore. I have to ask for help. It feels terrible. I don't like this humility thing. Go there. What was your awakening here when you had the death of pride, arrogance, and control? What was awakening in you? Or what was that revelation?
I discovered that we can be more creative also without resources.
How did that sound to you then? I know it sounds different to you now after having been through the experience, but what was it like then to realize that?
Sounds strange because I have a lot of ideology around how to realize things. You have to have money. You have to be somehow a kind of particular person. You have to be something that was defined between labels. So at any kind of labels I have around these topics, being creative and what else, they get destroyed in that moment.
Okay, excellent. So in that moment, then what's also, the awakening is, okay, labels. Let go of the labels, death of the labels. Okay, that's not who totally defines who I am. They're nice to have, but it's not who I am in my permanent self. I'm beyond that. And I can have my creativity without the label, right? So you can have more creativity. So this awakening contributes both to the death and to the rebirth. Do you guys follow what I'm saying here? And so you were born into what? More compassion, more creativity, what else?
I really not only sense that unconditional love, but it's like I became unconditional love.
You are unconditional love. Okay. Now, what if now today we bring you back into the same or similar situation? What would it be like now, knowing what you know?
Oh, well, the situation are looking to me quite differently. I feel that situation were a bliss to me, not a challenge.
So I'm saying to you right now, Irena, now you get a letter saying you've lost your house. The bank takes it back. You get fired on the same day, okay? And you lose your current relationship with anyone, whether it's a current lover or a family member, something. Now, having been through that, what's it like to go through it again?
Well, there is still the risk.
Yeah.
But I have quite more trust in the universe, that things happen for me, not against.
So like you're less of a rebel and fighter. You're less bound to say, this is so unfair to me. Of course it feels unfair, but you're willing to have more communication with the universe.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like that things are here to improve me, not to push me down.
Excellent. That's ultimately what this tool is for. It's to turn the client around into that realization. These obstacles and challenges are here to expand me and teach me, despite the pain. Yes, it's painful, but it's here to teach me something, like what you were saying here. That keeps you in a more resilient relationship with yourself and the obstacles around you and the world around you. That's the purpose of this. So in module 3, we work with this extensively, and we work with that crux moment. And this is designed to take the client into their rock bottom moment. Like, let's make it the worst possible so that they can learn of what's the awakening that needs to happen. Because many clients are over here saying, I want this beautiful new life. And I'm saying, well, what do you have to do to earn it? What do you have to go through it in order to earn that beautiful life? Because it's just not going to be handed to you. This is the mistake many people make when they live in their ideals of values and vision and nice purpose and all of that, and they want to ignore the hard work it takes. I'm not saying life takes hard work, but I'm saying what justifies that wonderful, beautiful life? What is the investment you put in order to get the return? Does this make sense to you guys, what I'm saying? Yes, no, or to disagree?
I don't know. I'm processing.
Okay.
But up until this point, I've been with you the whole time. Now
okay.
I got a little bit confused.
Right. When we hit rock bottom, it's more or less to knock on your head to say, wake up. Mm-hmm. If we can fantasize our rock bottom in like our worst nightmare, and we can have that awakening, then we don't have to physically live it. Mm-hmm. You understand?
Yeah.
We can choose our crux moment. For example, you could go to the store and they say, oops, your credit card is refused. Now, some people will say, no big deal. But you could take that like your crux moment and say, oh my God, a part of me just died. This is death. What is this trying to awaken in me? What do I need to pay attention to? And when you lock onto it, you learn the lesson and you move into a new world. But if you keep ignoring it, saying, yeah, not a problem, my credit was refused. Oh, now I'm foreclosed. I can't pay my loan. Oh, now I'm losing my house. Oh, now I've gone bankrupt. Do you see how it's the same thing, but in bigger and bigger circumstances? Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm looking for when I work with clients is what's their crux moment? What is the death they'd need to experience in order to have the awakening? That's one way to work with this. There's a lot more I could share, but I'm also noticing we're at time here. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What's one or two things you're taking away that feels inspiring that you could work with either personally or with other people? And there's so much more I could tell on this. I might need to do another webinar just on crux moment even. So don't have to hear from everyone, but I'd love to hear from some.
I have one thing to take away. The crux moment is one thing that I would really like to focus on a little bit more.
Yeah.
Since this is such a vulnerable place where you touch upon when you work with clients, is how. And I think I have to train it a little longer, is how to keep them in that moment so that they really go through that crux place, because they just usually jump over it.
Yes.
And that's the resistance that I can't really get through. And in order to really break the moment, not in order to break them, but to break the moment and let them see what is behind it. And that would be my wish that we might focus a little bit more on that in another webinar if it's possible, because this is exactly what I'm struggling with.
Okay. Actually, in the next webinar, it's called Trials. Here, I'll share it here. It's called Trials, Turbulence, and Transition. I'm going to talk more about the crux moment and then rising up into the new world. So, and building new resilience from there. So yeah, be sure to come to the next one then, because it'll focus on the breakdown and the breakthrough.
Excellent, thank you.
Anyone else? There's the next webinar there for you guys.
Troy, I will take the positioning on the map in order to know very, very well when you are home and when your outer world is feeling like home, because I deal a lot with my clients. We don't know how good neighbors we are in this map. So,
right.
And I don't want to get lost as Dorothy did. And
you know what, Cesar? Great question to ask them is, well, who were you as a child? Like, what's meaning like, okay, here you are in this situation here with your values and all that. Was that relevant to you when you were a kid or a teenager or in your 20s? Right? They'll have a different relationship to the current situation.
I cannot wait. I cannot forget the coaching session that you provided me in ICF Romania 2010. I was the client then, and I remember like it was yesterday when you just accompanied me to go into that period of my time. So it's very powerful tool. Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
And back to Carola, one tip I can give you when you're working crux moment with a client, watch all their reactions. In fact, what I do is I heighten the circumstance. It's like, well, if it's not enough for you to lose your credit card, well, now you're going to lose your house. And if not, then you're going to be bankrupt. And what you want to look for is, because they might say, oh, well, that's okay, I can handle it. Is that resilient or is that indifference? You need to look, because if they're being indifferent, meaning it doesn't affect me, they're really not letting the tragedy of it in, okay? When they are resilient, they can let the tragedy in and then it flows back out. When they're indifferent, they're blocking that tragedy from affecting them and they're numbing themselves out. When they do that, you have to go even higher. You have to rub it in their face until they finally react and say, no, I do not accept this. I refuse. There's the awakened, resilient energy, okay? Then you capture that and say, what did you just tap into? What had you say no and refuse to die and insist that you live? That's what's going to take them through. And that's the awakening. When you can isolate that moment and start to have them experience it and pull out what was in their awareness at that time. Then they start having the revelation and the rebirth. Do you guys understand that? Because that's what life is doing anyways to people. You can aggravate it and speed it up in a coaching session so they don't have to lose everything they own. There's no difference between the dream world and the physical world. We have the same relationship to all that stuff. Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to say what I mostly take from this is that you can choose your own like crisis and your own rewards. So like especially with past events that still linger in my head, it's like I can think, okay, so I had this event, a crisis, but I didn't get the reward, it seems. So maybe I can think, so what could be the reward? What could I get out of this?
Right.
Reconcile that.
And one way to go is what changed in me, or what became different? What can I then appreciate that it gave me? Like, what did it give me? So, and sometimes to do that work, there needs to be some kind of a forgiveness or reconciliation, because there still may be anger or bitterness towards the situation. But if you give yourself some distance or a more greater meta view to say, all right, if that didn't happen, who would have I continued to be? How did this change my path? And then what did I develop in myself? That's also another way to look at what the reward was. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Anyone else? Because we're a little bit over and I don't want to keep you too long.
Okay. I would just say I'm taking a lot of permission, both to amp up my coaching around this stuff in terms of really, I mean, it's the process of really taking people in and having that be a good and powerful thing as opposed to an agenda thing. And then also permission for myself to do the integration piece. I think it is so easy to jump on. And what you spoke about, just because I have been in this breakdown mode, and I feel like I'm coming out of it, and I feel like I've gotten some of the lessons, but the hardest thing for me is to really return all the way home. You know, it's like, okay, I did part of the integration, part of this. Yep, I get the lessons. Yep, I understand some of this stuff. But the really like settling in and coming all the way home is the hardest piece for me in my own journey, I realize. And so, and as always with coaching, it's like I have to practice that for myself to be able to make it okay for my clients to be, you know, so lots of permission. So thank you. I'm taking other stuff too, but that's
awesome. And sometimes, Sarah, by facilitating a process where the client can begin loving themselves, they can be your teacher. So this is for all of you, don't think you have to experience everything first before the client can. Sometimes it's the other way around. Allow yourself to have the humility to learn from them.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And you don't have to tell them that, but keep that in the back of your mind, right? That you're letting them be your teacher. And that actually opens so much more creativity in your sessions as well. Then you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself, and it really opens it wide. Regarding those lessons, it can be, you know, what if this obstacle or this situation is my teacher, what is it trying to wake up in me? What is it trying to awaken? And regarding the lesson, what does it demand of me to master this lesson? And that might be another way of saying, what is it I need to let go of in order to master the lesson? Those are some key questions that can help you move through that.
Thank you.
And regarding meeting the old self, for all of you, if you ground yourself in that resilience and in that feeling of unconditional love, it's not love towards anything. It's just that feeling of I am love. Then you could imagine that old self in front of you, and you send that energy to the old self. And it may accept it, it may reject it. If it rejects it, just bring it back and cycle it back through yourself, and then try again. By the third or fourth try, that self will take it. Notice their reaction and what shifts in them, and then notice what they send back to you. So you start creating this horizontal loop of that unconditional love going between you. That helps to start reconciling the new with the old self. And it also starts neutralizing any resentment, old resentments that you've been holding against them or that they've been holding against you. It can go both ways, the resentment, okay? And we may talk about that in the next webinar, but we would talk about these in the modules as well. So I thank you very much, everyone, for joining. You will receive a follow-up email with the information we've got here for the next modules in Europe and in North America with the registration sites, as well as the next webinar is on October 3rd. Its focus is trials, turbulence, and transition. Okay, a lot to do with the crux moment. And then actually the November webinar is about the Phoenix Rising. Okay, so I programmed these to have a logical progression. And we do have the website. It's not officially launched, but that's the web address. And if you go there, it also gives you the links to more information and the registration sites as well. Okay, that website should be launched probably sometime in early October. We're just doing finishing touches on it now. If you have any questions, please email me. And otherwise, I hope to see you again soon. And I wish you all the best. And keep awake to the hero within. And have a brilliant and radiant journey. Okay? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Troy. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.